Alt-right and neo-Nazi leader Richard Spencer spoke at the University of Florida today, but unfortunately due to protests, his speech got cut a little short and he was upset that he was being booed. Now, Florida had been preparing for this event for the entire week and for weeks to come up to this speech. In fact, on Monday, Florida Governor Rick Scott declared a state of emergency where the university is located to enable law enforcement agencies to work together more efficiently. He also made a provision for the National Guard to be activated if necessary. Now, the university prepared for the event as well. In fact, University of Florida President W. Kent Fuchs denounced Spencer's white supremacist platform as abhorrent in a letter to students, but said that the school could not stop him from renting the Phillips Center for the event because it's a public university. Now, by law, the school also has to pay for any additional costs of security. And given the heightened concerns, the school is providing extra security that exceeds $600,000, which is a lot of money, and taxpayers are going to have to pay for that because it's a public university. The president said, "I really don't believe that's fair that the taxpayer is now subsidizing through these kind of events, the security, and having to subsidize his hate speech." All right. Now, leading up to the event, Richard Spencer was aware that the state of emergency was enacted. He was aware of the police and the protesters that were preparing, and he was eating it up. In an interview with CNN, he said that he was flattered by the state of emergency declaration, which he said put him on par with hurricanes and invading armies and zombie apocalypses, which just tells you what kind of swell guy he is. And so Richard Spencer is obviously a douchebag, one, and two, a huge proponent of
confirmed. Confirmed. I can confirm.
Checks out. A huge proponent of freedom of speech, right? That's what they try. They use that as a guise for their hate speech, right? But what's interesting, though, is in preparation for this event, Richard Spencer hand-selected the press that was allowed into the event so that he could control the spin that was being played for his speech. Reporters who had signed up to cover Spencer's event received an email on Wednesday from the university telling them that all media credentialing decisions are made by the NPI, which refers to the National Policy Institute, which is the neo-Nazi think tank that is run by Spencer. So that's a very interesting twist in this story, and I definitely want to get into that because I do think that that's sort of ironic given what Spencer stands for and the conversation that he has around free speech. But first, I want to show you guys a video from the national reporter from the HuffPost. He was in the auditorium when Spencer was speaking, and you can hear students chanting, "Go home, Spencer." In other videos, you can hear them chanting that Nazis are not welcome here. And Spencer's response is kind of interesting. Take a look.
The most important free speech event, perhaps of our lifetime. This is where the rubber hits the road with the question of the First Amendment and free expression. This is where the rubber hits the road. Free speech is a meaningless concept.
All right, so a few things that I want to clarify. The people in the back are putting up the Black Power fist. They're not putting up, like, it's hard to tell from the video, especially in that kind of crowd. You don't know if people are raising one hand, what kind of salute they're doing. So that's what they were doing, and you can see the space between all the empty chairs, and that's the space between the protesters in the back that were separated by the chairs, separated by police, and then presumably supporters of Spencer who were in the front. We can't see them, any of them, but presumably they were there.
I have seen them. Snapchat has a map feature, which if you pinch your face when you're taking a selfie, you reveal the map. You then go to Gainesville right now, which is where the University of Florida is, and you can look all over campus. Today, all over campus at the University of Florida was a ghost town, except for the quick response forces, which are guys in tan, like long sleeve shirts.
Wait, really quick on that. I just want to. Right before the show, Kimberly Archer from University of Florida emailed me saying, "Can you cover this story? Like, this is crazy." She said that students were afraid to set foot on campus, and that a bunch of professors canceled classes because they were terrified of violence. violence.
You can see
I mean, that's absurd.
You can see inside classrooms where multiple students have just posted like, there's no one here today, I guess I didn't get the memo. But inside the event, you can also see someone posted a snap from the balcony looking down, and there's about 20. There's about 20 Richard Spencer people.
Yeah.
Compare that to the scores of folks outside. Actually, Snapchat, they have like, they go together and they group different events and they give it a little title and you can see a little thumbnail. It started with Richard Spencer event and then they changed it to an edited featured video called, and it displaced the Richard Spencer event and it was replaced with protesting racism at Gainesville.
Oh wow, yeah, I think
that's powerful.
I think it's interesting because a lot of folks did opt to not go, including folks who actually did want to attend the event, who were scared to attend the event. So a lot of folks opted to watch it online. I guess that was an option. So I think what this means symbolically is great, but it doesn't mean that folks still aren't interested in this message.
Yeah, and I don't think that's necessary. I mean, we have seen clearly, like we saw at Charlottesville, we see online on a daily basis that folks are interested in this message, right? But what I think is really interesting, right, is that he, before the event, right, he wanted to essentially stifle like the freedom of the press, right? He wanted to pick and choose whom was allowed in the room and could cover the event. And then he claimed that during the speech, he said, "You're trying to stifle our free speech," while people were booing. And it's like, we also have freedom to protest, freedom to assemble. And it's like, just because you have free speech doesn't mean you have the freedom to be heard. Like, the problem is those voices are louder, thank God, than you. And you don't, that just because you can't be heard and you decided not to speak through the boos doesn't mean you still don't have freedom of speech. So sorry, not sorry.
The voices are so much louder than the folks he had there. He was selling tickets, and there is a small group in the front, which is completely just, dwarfed in numbers by the folks that are inside, outside. There, you can see people outside. They had some amazing chants, one of which was just no violence.
Yeah.
When things started to get testy, the crowd would chant no violence.
Yeah.
Things like, Richard Spencer, go home, Nazis not welcome here. There was someone translating the chants into sign language for people who were hearing impaired to say you're welcome. And then all over campus, people had put up, fraternities had put up signs that said, we're about love and not hate. Someone had just printed out "you're loved" on a bunch of pieces of white paper, and it's all over campus. Someone went through and just panned around and showed all the outpouring of support, and it's in multiple languages, including German and English and Spanish.
Just in case someone wants to.
Yeah, just like
switch sides.
So I feel like we have the good guys have won here.
Sure.
The fight's not over, but just it is impossible to say that Richard Spencer and the message of hate have won when there are so many positive voices out there who seem to, and this is as of the an hour ago, who seem to have kept it mellow and spread a message of love and told the Nazis that they're not welcome there.
Yeah, no, and I think that's really profound, and I think that's very important. And just again, like you have the freedom to stand on a soapbox wherever you want and say what you want in this country. And I stand firmly behind freedom of speech, and I will protect that right, even if I don't agree with you. That said, we don't have to listen to you
or pay for it. Like the universities need to consider some kind of logistical solution to funding, right, these kinds of forums, right? So I know he had to pay to rent this space. Should that cost be inclusive of the additional security that you require because you are this volatile public identity? You need to fit the bill for the added security and all the measures that we need to provide because you've decided that this is the space that you want to kind of present your ideas in. So
that's a really good point as well. The girl who emailed me, the viewer who emailed me, who is a student there, said, "Look, I'm paying for a service, presumably. I'm paying for an education, and now I'm also paying to have this person spew hateful rhetoric."
So there's a lot of talk about safe spaces in America because safe space is just a term.
Right.
People can use that term differently.
Sure. Right.
And I think a university is it should be a safe space for your body. You should be safe there.
Yeah.
It should not. It should be a safe space, not from ideas, but a safe space for the exchange of ideas.
Sure.
Yes.
So when it comes to having Richard Spencer there, that I'm fine with him going and speaking. But it's such a weird dynamic that the president of the university can now say, well, he's in charge of so much because he essentially just paid to rent the space out.
Right. He paid to rent the space out, and then he chose his press. So if he's choosing which people are allowed in to cover it, wouldn't you say like that's sort of a safe space?
Yeah, absolutely. But the other thing is part of his strategy is to have this discussion specifically. Right. Now, I'm perfectly fine giving in to him having this discussion, or really any discussion, because our ideas are better than his. But he wants to have that discussion of, oh, everyone's mad that like this isn't getting covered right, and that they don't want me here. They're classifying me the same way as a hurricane. Other things that are part of his strategy is naming his think tanks called the National Policy Institute, which is so intellectually dishonest and frighteningly benign sounding.
I feel like that's his shtick. He just changes like the names of awful. I mean, he's changed the neo-Nazi Nazi movement into the alt-right. That's his shtick, is just like rebranding.
Yeah, and
he's a marketer.
Not just him. Yeah, he's avoiding like the common pitfalls of regular, average, garden variety, traditional white supremacists, which are like himself personally wearing swastikas. And there's one interview that I read about a guy, I think we all saw this, which was there's a guy who's like a more Nazi type white supremacist who said, he doesn't go as far as I want. He doesn't talk about the Zionist owned media as much. And he also his group has issued in advance of events guidelines for like how to dress nice, so people call us dapper.
Well, yeah, they're trying to expand the idea or the framework for what it means to present as a white supremacist, right? To again, kind of reduce the stigma of kind of these historical depictions that we have of white supremacists. But then you walk down marching, hollering blood and soil with torches. Like you're calling on those past ghosts. So I think there is a way in which they are trying to again rebrand. And they're even being covered in that way. I remember Richard Spencer being like cast as somebody who was fashion forward, and it's like, okay, but his ideas are backwards. So like, where are we? Why are we doing this? So a ton of questions, a lot of nuance, I think, with this movement, and I think it's interesting that this is happening alongside the recent declaration that Black identity extremists are now the #1 like national terrorist threat, right? But this is the group where we've got to call,
Then we have to call a state of emergency.
Exactly.
Right.
So it's like, who really is the domestic security threat?
If you like this video, you'll love the whole TYT network. Check it out at tytnetwork.com/join.